Hi friends, my viewer friend Hope sent me this photo and asked me how I would tackle these trees. I'm going to move in an upward motion because that's how the branches grow, and as you can see I've left spaces of white in between because they signify air. We want our tree to breathe. Now I'm moving over to my roundish mop brush, and I'm going to do it different. So here, this one I was pushing up. On this one I'm going to go sideways and make 3 different shapes like that, and then put a trunk through the middle and some branches. I'm showing you all this because then you can see what you think might work for you. Okay, now before I move on to the third one with the different brush again, let's stay here with these two because I don't want them to dry off. Whilst the paint is still wet, I need to do step 2 of my easy tree process, and that is put in some color while it's still wet. So I need to go in the direction of the growth. My brush has to be not too wet, and I need to press very lightly. I like to put more foliage on one side because then it exposes the blue atmospheric effect of the background leaves. But it's very, very important. So I am coming through the center and leaving gaps. This suggests that the tree has dimension. Let's move on to this one. I have to take my round brush now. And here I am going to do a similar thing. Starting at the bottom. The reason I start at the bottom is because I may be too heavy-handed up the top. See how this one has in fact dried off a little bit, and you can see more of the strokes underneath. Yeah, it's really helpful to just continue on one tree. But I can blur them out a bit. But notice how I'm leaving the blue behind because it adds dimension to the whole thing. Now for the third one, again I need my blue first step, which is the shape of the tree. And now I'm going to use, I've forgotten now, I'm going to use it with upward strokes, but I'll be using the flat of the brush. And then you can see that we've done all of these differently, and you can see which one you like the best. So coming back now while this is still wet, because that's what we like, I'm adding some leaves and making sure to go through the middle in places. Now we can move on to our rigger and come back, and it's all still nice and wet now. The trunk needs to be broken up. It doesn't matter if it's all blurry, that's fine. A bit more dotted up there, and you can pull some lovely branches. The branches are quite long. Try to be as light-handed as possible and to blur them out on the end. You can do that with your fingers. So just when you get to the end, just blur it out a bit. And now for this one, it's the rigger again. And I'm doing it like that. And then some branches. And always leaving a bit of the blue behind, because it really adds atmosphere. Okay, now we can move on to the last one, and it also gets the rigger treatment. You can even press the rigger down. If your hands aren't cooperating the way you'd like, here's a little trick you can try for nice thin lines. I need a little piece of watercolour paper, and I need to mix up some paint. And now stick that in there. And this can be bent or straight, whatever you like. So this will give us the thin little branches that we would like in here. Just make sure they come from the middle. Okay, I don't want to overdo it. So here's our third one. But the only thing we're missing now is a little bit of shadow. So I'm going for my raw sienna and a little bit of these two dark colors to make it darker. And I can, put some shadow colors in behind where I think they might be, with the sun coming from that direction. And now for a bit more on these two. It's safer to start at the bottom with your brush because it's wetter and you want the top to be the driest or the thinnest or something. Because the branches grow up like that, this is a good way of putting in some shadow effects. Now, they are still damp, so we can come in with a palette knife. I'll try this one first and give it a little bit of a highlight in there. And then when these are dry, of course, then we can come in with some dark right alongside the light and we'll have beautiful details. But okay, the moral to this story is to see that 3 different brushes can give you a similar tree, but they've all been done differently. Now on this side, let's do a little row of poplars, because that's a very common occurrence. So with our row of trees, the first thing to do is the overall basic shape in our blue-grey. And this will include not only the front tree, but all the trees. That's our first step. Like that. And now I'm going to consciously try and leave a little bit of a gap between the main tree, and the trees are going to come down very, very rapidly. So starting from the bottom, just going up. And there's our row of trees with some raw sienna. Have to make sure it's fairly dry, and come in with the leaves, always going in just a little flick upwards, and remember across the middle in a few places, and maybe a little bit on the other side. And then here just a little bit all through. I'll give it a bit up the top here. All right, now I will use my rigger brush. It's a little bit of, and you can just build on the trunk that's created, weaving in and out of the foliage to make sure that it's woven, that the lines are broken. And you can add a bit of dry marks to that. And now we're coming in to the rest of the trees with a little bit of a darker shade than what we had before. And again, starting at the bottom is the safest place to start. So just little upward strokes. Maybe make that one a bit higher. And now coming in, not as dark, so it's got to be a little bit cooler, then a little bit more blue in the combination of colours. Just a few little stems here and there. And always lighter. Okay, so there's our poplars. For the bare winter tree, we can do it a few different ways too. In this first example, I'm dabbing using some rubber matting. In the second, I wet the paper and painted an overall shape before doing the trunk and the branches. And in our third example, I'm wetting the paper in an irregular way, leaving some spots dry, and then starting with the trunk and branches. And here the secret is just keep it going uneven. It doesn't matter how you go, just as long as it's uneven. So, I won't say doesn't matter, but zigzag, zigzag, and okay, a trunk can't really grow like that, but let's put in a little bit more of a trunk there. But see how the zigzag lines really help with the character and the form of the branches. And just to make sure, of course, that they are the thickest in the middle. And now, just with the rigger brush on its side, a few little dry brush marks really help with all those tiny little twigs that we can't even see, but we can imagine when we see all this. And then, with a slightly stronger variation of the grey, we can just make it a bit stronger on one side. And when you've got a little bit of a variation of dark and light branches, it does look a bit more three-dimensional. And I'm going to break up the front because that will give us the illusion the branches are coming towards us and away from us. So I'm looking at these trees and thinking, something boring about them. And you know what it is? They're all on the same level. They're all nearly the same size. So let's just make this a little bit bigger and bring this tree forward. I'm going to do it like this. Let's first make this trunk come forward. And now I'm thinking I might even add a little ghosting of the blue after all. Just a little bit. There we go. There's our winter tree. So thank you, Hope, for your question. I really hope this has helped you, and I hope it's helped many others too. I know you've inspired me for more trees. I really love trees, and I'm thinking a little series might be good. Let me know your thoughts. There's just so many ways to go about them, and there's so many beautiful trees, and think about the gum trees here in Australia. If you've enjoyed this, Stay tuned and see what YouTube thinks you should see next. And thanks for watching. Bye for now.